Alrighty, I am so excited to have on Courtney Zentz, who is the owner of Tiny Transitions, and also she has her very own podcast, Kids Sleep Show Podcast. She's also a certified pediatric consultant, postpartum doula, infant mental health provider, certified lactation consultant. So I am so excited to talk to you because you might be thinking, okay, so you have this amazing sleep trainer on, Steven and Chelsea, but like, how does this apply to my Amazon business or making passive income? I am here to tell you, and I'm sure Courtney will in just a second as well, that sleep is so important. And if you, your kiddos, and your family are not sleeping well, that's going to affect every aspect of your life, including your business and the goals and your family's finances that we care so much about. So Courtney, I'm so excited to dive into this topic with you. And you're just such a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much for being on with us today.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share and to help all of those moms listening get better rest.
So good. So Courtney, can you take us into your journey with sleep? Like your journey with sleep, because I read a little bit about it, but how did you get into this? Because quite the stack of skills and things you've developed to help serve moms at a higher level, which we love. But where did this all start?
So it started out of the birth of my son, Max, who is just about 8 years old. And at the time I was in corporate America, working my way up the ladder, had a team of about 50 employees and had a baby and thought, oh, I'll just work on maternity leave and everything's going to be great. And I'll watch Netflix and have a baby that sleeps. And we all know that when you have that baby, that is not the actual case. And it really was out of the first 8 weeks of exhaustion, overwhelm, a lack of prepared nature for being a mom, right? And you read all the books and you do all the things and the nursery looks really cute. And then this baby comes home and there's no manual. There's no support or help. And, I just started to kind of come off the rails a little bit, as a lot of new parents do, because you're just overwhelmed and unsupported, and that's really where my journey started, frankly, was a phone call to another sleep consultant. And she's like, you're actually not doing bad for their age and you don't need to hire me. And I was like, but I really enjoyed the conversation with her and what she shared and such. And we just kind of started a friendship out of it. And I was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to help other moms. And that was really what started it, was because I was so tired and I was failing at everything, frankly. And when I got sleep and I sleep trained my son and I got him on a schedule and I got routine and consistency, and I felt like I could kind of get my life back by between about 8 and 12 weeks, and it was just a game changer for me. And I'm like, I got this now, and that was really what started it, where I'm like, I'm so passionate about sleep and lactation and just the fact that you can do this and teach a tiny baby these great things. And it doesn't have to be so brutal. Like, people sometimes think what I do is heartless. I'm like, it's the best gift you can give your kid and yourself, which is sleep, because everybody needs it. So my long-winded answer.
That's so good.
I love that. And our son is 2 years old, and then we're about to have another one. So we're going to go through all of this all over again. And thankfully, like Kaizen, I would say overall was a very easy baby, good sleeper. So I think we had a lot of those check boxes already going for us, which I'm super grateful for. But I remember like the first couple of weeks, like we did have a friend like send us a online sleep training course, and we went through it, like binge watched it, and it really did help. And I would be curious to like ask you this question, because I would definitely consider myself a little more of a crunchy mama. Like, I wanted and desiring again for this birth to be like no interventions if possible, like unmedicated. Like, I love that. So I feel like I have my foot in two doors, where I understand like sleep training and how important it is, but I'm also in these other crunchy mama groups who do a lot of like co-sleeping. And like, at least for me, I'm like, I don't think that would work for our lifestyle, like having a baby in bed with us and like trying to sleep and run a business. And so I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about like both sides of things, or just how like, I feel like in the crunchy mama world, some people are like, sleep training is bad. Like, you don't want them to cry it out and all of those things. So I would love for you to like touch upon that, and just how like you've been able to help so many families get back their sleep and then function properly and go about their day to day.
And it's a great question. And you bring up a couple words that I think are sort of very easily connected with the work that I do. First, it's cry it out. So sleep training comes in a couple different facets, and I'll explain. As a newborn, people are like, I can't believe you sleep train newborns. I'm like, I don't sleep train newborns. I teach a parent what a baby needs to be at the best version of themselves for the age that they are. Most parents don't know that a newborn should only be awake 45 to 60 minutes. And if they're not getting the nap at that time, they get overtired. Overtired triggers stimulant hormones, which then triggers poor eating. And it triggers a lot of tears. And then it triggers a baby who's kind of going through this vicious cycle, right? So with newborns, I look at it as setting a sleep foundation. So when a parent hires me to coach them on a newborn, we're not sleep training a newborn. I'm teaching you all the foundational stuff so you never, ever have to sleep train. And then as you get into infancy, you got a 6-month-old that's only ever nursed to sleep and slept in mommy's bed. We're going to do some sleep training because it's a habit, right? Like so when you're a newborn, it's setting a foundation. You can build a strong sleep foundation without the need to have a tier. At infancy, you got to look at the structure of the day, what habits are frankly there, what their timing looks like, what their naps look like, their independence, like all this different stuff. And then what's ideal? Do you want them in the room or out of the room? Do you want them in the bassinet or in a crib? Like there's no right or wrong. I sleep train families of 4 that live in a 1-bedroom apartment in New York. And I sleep train, parents with desires in different parts of the world where their cultures are different. And so with infancy, it is a little more of like resetting what you're doing. And then when you hit 18 months, you're moving into the toddler train, baby. They know how to sleep. They're choosing not to because the alternative is better, whether it's getting in your bed, you getting in bed with them. I had a hair twirler once. She said, Mommy, I want to twirl your hair. In 90 minutes every night, she twirled mommy's hair. And I'm like, but you're letting her do that. So don't let her do that. It's not as simple as that, right? But like when you get into the 18 months and up, it's more behavior modification. So it's like newborns, foundations, infants, a little more restructuring, right? And then with toddlers, it's behavior mostly. And I teach, most of the work I do is educating parents on awake windows and hormones and overtired and structure and schedules. I'm a lactation counselor and I'm a partial crunchy mama who's also type A. So I get both sides of both sides of that. And, you talked about co-sleeping and stuff. It's just not safe. I see a lot of stuff that I don't want to see. In certain cultures. Co-sleeping is done a very different way, for example, than it is here in the States. And, you're never going to tell somebody to do something. It's not my job to tell you how or where. My job is to tell you what the American Academy of Pediatric recommends based on data, safe sleep, and the minimization of any sort of accident that we don't ever want a parent to go through. So, there's a balance with it. And you can have your baby right next to you in a safe sleeping place in the bassinet or a co-sleeper that's got its own confined little space that's literally right next to you. And that's fine. You don't necessarily want them rolling in between you with 3 down feather comforters and 7 pillows and all that kind of stuff. So like a balance, right? You can still co-sleep and have the baby kind of co-sleeping safely next to you, if you will. So,
yeah, that's so good. I mean, we saw just the results of doing, like Chelsea said, fairly minimal sleep training, but we definitely had this kind of like transition period from in our room, in a bassinet type thing to his room, and that was the whole thing. And it really was just educating ourselves because we didn't have a manual for this thing. And so learning about, I feel like the biggest things, and maybe you could talk about this, what are the biggest breakthroughs that you feel like sometimes moms have when they start going through education on this? Biggest things for us, I think, was the overstimulation thing when we started to like notice that. And then also like how much we were feeding him throughout the day to make sure that he was really well fed so he could go for longer periods of time. And then, we did have a couple nights there, where we were kind of in that training phase where it wasn't like cry it out, but it was like, let's just see if he'll figure this out, 5 minutes. And then if not, then we would go in and comfort him and still be there the whole time. And that was the only painful part of it, which was like just 2 nights of kind of like hitting the wall there just a little bit. But we're so like thankful we did because now he sleeps like literally 12 hours a night. We put him down and it's just
and he has been for a long time.
And he has been for a long, long time. And just the skills he's developed to soothe himself if he wakes up unexpectedly or, anything like that. So I don't know, what are some of those breakthrough kind of like aha moments you consistently hear moms say when they come into your program? they're like, oh my gosh, I never knew that. Or that was such a breakthrough just to know that one thing.
I definitely think, to your point, overtired, right? So you've got kind of main facets of what helps a child to sleep well. First is their schedule. Okay. If somebody said to me, you can't put a newborn on a schedule. Well, I would agree with that. One day they're going to sleep for an hour. The next day they might fart and wake up at 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a baby. But you can monitor awake windows. So to your point, watching their awake window and what is ideal. Okay. So for example, at 6 months, roughly about 2.5 to 3 hours. At 5 months, somewhere around 2 hours. At 4 to 3 months, you're somewhere around an hour and a half to 2 hours. So you're kind of gaining about a half hour as a baby grows with those awake windows. And then they stay pretty steady from 7 to 12 months, give or take, right? Roughly around 3 hours. But if you're managing their awake windows, okay, their naps aren't going to naturally consolidate till 5 months. So parents really stress about naps. Why isn't my baby napping longer? What is going on? They're not supposed to. When you're born as a baby, you only sleep in 2 stages of sleep, deep sleep and light sleep, 50% of the time. Around 3 months, you then have what most people call the 3-month sleep regression or the 4-month sleep regression, right? It's actually just a developmental leap. So they go from stage-based sleep to cycle-based sleep. Now, what happens is they're now waking more frequently because their cycles are only 45 to 60 minutes. So you had a baby that was 8 weeks old sleeping and only waking twice, and then all of a sudden they're waking like 6 times. And as a parent, you're going, oh, this is the dreaded regression. Well, it's a regression because there's a bad habit in there, right? The cycles are going to change. It goes stage to cycle. But if a child knows how to self-settle, which is what we build as a newborn, right, then they're never going to hit the 4-month sleep regression because they understand when they wake at 3 a.m. and 3:45 and 4:30 how to put themselves back to sleep. Most parents have to go in and be the thing.
Yeah.
You have to rock them or nurse them or bounce them or coddle them or do whatever to get them to sleep. So where the word to sleep is, that becomes the root of the problem. Whatever the to sleep is, it doesn't matter. It's your baby's understanding that the expectation for them to go to sleep requires this thing to sleep. So if you start to decouple that and slowly lessen the engagement, but again, you're not crying it out. It's about lessening the engagement and building the skill at the same time. Over the course of a couple days, the skill strengthens and they forget about this thing over here.
Yeah.
And if their daytime is balanced with timing, they're not overtired. There's not excess stimulant hormones and stuff, and if a baby's tired, they're not eating well, right? So that's where you get in that intake issue that, you might have seen a little bit until you kind of figured out that right structure. Babies need 24 to 32 ounces of milk in the day. Doesn't matter if it's breast milk or formula. When they get it in the day, they sleep through the night. Does that mean I have clients that still feed at night? Absolutely. If a baby's hungry, you feed them whenever they're hungry. If they're using food to go to sleep, that's a habit. Very different, right? So, I have 3-month-olds that sleep for 12 hours and I have 6-month-old nursing moms who we keep feedings in overnight because they're appropriate, because it's not a habit, it's hunger. So there's so many different ways you can look at it, and those would probably be my biggest nuggets of like, create some structure in the day with your schedule and watching awake windows, and then manage the intake. Babies that graze feed all day, a lot of babies that I work with that feed on demand, frankly, they end up having colic and they end up taking less in the day because it's like Kaizen, he's perpetually snacking. He's never going to eat dinner. If you're like, hey, buddy, here's your grilled cheese. And he's like, no, man, I just had apples and carrots and puffy things that my kids like. What are those called? Pirate's booty. Then you sit down for dinner and he's like, nah, I'm good. Right? Yeah. It's the same with babies. So if they're perpetually snacking all day, they never give their tank enough time to exit. And then they're never really hungry for that full feeding. And if you structure their schedule a little bit more around like kind of a loosely every 3 hours, and I say that without somebody emailing me and being like, you said to starve your baby till every 3 hours. Not what I said. Just, every 3 hours roughly. I mean, if a baby's hungry, you feed them, but like you try to get them on that type of schedule because it means they're taking full feeds every time. And then you're maximizing that daily intake so they can sleep.
Yeah. I love this. You're opening my eyes to so many things, like looking back on, even I'm just rewinding, I guess, what we did with Kaizen. And again, like, I think we did get him somewhat on a little bit of a schedule, like doing that in air quotes when he was a newborn, but just being aware of his awake time. And I remember like several nights, like he was way overstimulated, and it was really hard to get him to go down for like that quick little nap. And it's like, oh, he's been up for too long. And yeah, it really did help us like understanding his cues. And I remember like trying to nurse like every couple of hours and just being adamant about making that happen. And I don't really feel like he had any major sleep regressions, but I think it was because we were paying attention to that, and the way that you just explained it, it makes so much sense. And I think that so many families, and I mean, we learn this in our world too, when we're teaching about creating financial freedom and Amazon and all of that. Like there's people who have invested in themselves before, and there are people who have never invested a dollar in anything that they do, you know? And I think it's the same thing with parenting and with sleep. You know, if it's something that you value so much, are you willing to like pay to have help to do that? You know, and so Steve and I are all about like, not so much, well, outsourcing, yes, but also like, this is an important thing to invest in as well. So I just love what you're doing and teaching people and empowering them, because so many people just don't know. Like I remember my eyes being opened when I was prepping for birth and like stages of labor. And there's so many things that women don't realize. And I just am like, if you could only just really, you know, get into things and understand, there could be like an even more incredible outcome that you're hoping for, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it's such a beautiful transformation to see your child happier, more balanced, more rested. When kids wake up crying, they're generally still tired. As a general rule of thumb, when they go to bed crying, they're generally overtired, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tears happening. And I know people are like, you know, is there some crying with sleep training? Well, if you're sleep training a child who's only ever fall asleep on the boob, yeah, there is. And anybody that tells you there's not is lying to you, because it's impossible, because it's a habit you're breaking, right? So it's just trying to like understand for families that like there's ways to do this, and that it's not all cookie cutter, you know? Like I have a lot of parents that are exclusively nurse. I was trying to exclusively nurse for 12 months. I made it about 9 till my son bit me, and then I did what the blogs say, which is sharply remove him from the breast and scold him a little bit, you know, so that he doesn't do it again. And he never latched again. And my heart broke, because I was like, I am crumbling. I want to just nurse you for 12 months. And that was my goal. And I was like, well, I can still pump. I just want you to get the breast milk, right? But I think the biggest thing is like setting up, like, don't have unrealistic expectations, right? But at the same time, like, understand what you're doing and know that, like, if mom's exclusively nursing and you're like listening to this going, well, that's great, Courtney, I don't know if my baby gets 24 to 32 ounces. You know what you do? If you are pumping for one day, pump for 24 hours. See how much milk comes out of your boobs and how much he takes. And then, you know, like I have so many clients that exclusively nurse and they do it for just one day. And they're like, oh my gosh, I barely get anything at 2 o'clock, which means he's barely getting anything at 2 o'clock. You know, it's not a 1-to-1 from a pump standpoint, but it's a close indicator of like lots of milk here, maybe a dip here. And what could we do to make sure that they're getting that intake, whether it's topping them off with some frozen breast milk or some formula, or if you're just feeding them with formula, you know how much intake they're getting. That's a beautiful thing, because you can say, today they got 24 ounces. They'll probably just wake once. Maybe they had an off day. Their belly hurts. They're sick. They only got 16 ounces. They're probably going to wake 2 or 3 times. And it gives you an indicator to feel so much more prepared as a parent with a plan going in there to bedtime. A lot of times you're just like, let's see how tonight goes, you know, you know, and you have no idea why they're waking or what's going on or what you could have done differently.
So cool. I love it. And it's like, you know, like Chelsea said, it's bringing up all these things that we went through with Kai. We're about to go through again with the second. What have you seen, just personal? I'm just thinking this podcast is about us now.
This is an educational hour for us.
What the second one, the second child? Because I feel like when you have one, it's like all your focus is on the one, right? And so there's almost a more sensitivity to, okay, I'm measuring things, I'm doing this, and like with the second, how have you seen either parents win or fail at that? What advice would you give to us going into having a second child, having a toddler, and also wanting to win at sleep training and empowering our new son to sleep well?
So a couple things. First, get him involved before you have the baby. So buy a little baby boy doll.
Yeah.
And start to say, hey, Kaizen, do you want to help change the diaper? Do you want to hold him? We're going to have a new baby brother. Like, start early to get like another baby around where you're holding him. And then also that a lot of times what happens when you introduce a sibling is Kaizen's going to go, wait a minute, I'm losing mommy and daddy time, right? Like what just happened? My whole world
Yeah.
was me, and now there's this other little thing here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can show him that when you have this fake baby and you can say, you know what, let me put the baby down and then I will come do whatever it is he's looking for. After a week or two, he's going to realize that like he's not losing his time with you just because there's a baby in. So it does help to ease that from a transition standpoint with him, right? So we take his feelings into account. Now, for you both, the first night we laid in bed after we had my daughter, we came home from the hospital. My husband is like, what the F did we do? Like, I don't know. He's like, you wanted this, like, you wanted this, you know? And we were like, okay, we got this, you know? So we sort of jumped back in because you go from zone coverage to man coverage and it's drastically different, right?
Yeah.
And my husband's like, I can't help you if you're nursing, like, you know, and what we always did as a family that worked well, which again, it's what we did, it's not for everybody, was I always pumped, but I also, you know, those first couple of days where I couldn't get anything out because my milk hadn't come in yet, we would do for bedtime, I would go to sleep. So I would feed, at this point, it was my daughter, 7:00. I started bedtime at 7:00, like when they're born. Like you're going to bed at 7. You're going to be up at 10, 1, 4, and 7 roughly to eat, right? And it's not always that beautiful, but it's pretty, my kids were both pretty close to that, right? And so at 10:00, my husband would stay awake. So I would go to sleep at like 7:30 after I'd pump. And I would sleep from 7:30 till the next waking, which was like 1 or 2 in the morning. So it allowed me to get like 5 hours of sleep, right? He would stay up till 10. It was always that we had kids around March Madness. So he would be watching basketball and have the baby. And then he would do a feeding at 10:00.
Okay.
So he would go in, wake them up, bring them out, feed them a bottle, and then burp them, pass out. Okay. They would go back to bed and then I would have the rest of the night, you know? And so that was a really helpful way for him to feel like he was involved, for me to get some sleep because I was with the baby all day and I, you know, and the rest of the night I had to get up anyway because my boobs were uncomfortable. So, you know, we really worked out as a team, and probably the best marriage saving advice that I ever did was buy a $10 whiteboard on Amazon. And I wrote down every single thing that we do each week in the house. Because at one point I was like, I am failing and I don't know what's happening. You know, one of my like rare breakdowns. And he's like, get a whiteboard. And I wanted to punch him in the face when he said that initially. And I was like driving in the car. I'm like, I'll get the biggest whiteboard that, right, you know. So I go to Amazon, get a whiteboard. By the time we get back from being at the beach for the weekend, there was a beautiful whiteboard there waiting for us. And in a Sharpie, I wrote down kids laundry, art laundry, cut the grass, weed the front yard, clean the toilets, do the things, pack the bug, grab the groceries, order things, you know. And it just allowed us to work as a team when we weren't communicating as much because we were chasing 2 children around now, trying to figure out, you know, sports and different things. And, you know, we could check the box. And it's been so beautiful for our marriage. Even now, our kids are 5 and 7 now, almost 6 and 8. And we still do it mentally. Like we don't need the whiteboard anymore, but it's like we know what each other's got covered and we're kind of working as a team during that point of overwhelm. Whereas, I know for me personally, as someone who was home with the baby, I also felt that I had to be the one to have the perfect house, to have the perfect dinner ready when he came home, to have the perfect baby, to have the perfect, and it wasn't perfect in that like I'm some, you know, what's that show called, Desperate Housewife type thing, but it was like, I felt like my responsibility because I was home was to do all those things. And then when I was failing at it, it made me feel like less and less good, you know? And at the end of it, I'm like, okay, now I didn't realize at the time I had postpartum anxiety and depression. Newsflash, most people have that, you know? I didn't know that at the time. And so, you know, my friends were like, you have postpartum anxiety and depression, you know? And it took a couple weeks, like with the second one, for me to get out of that and to get in the zone. And that whiteboard was just like, boom, I got this. You're going here. It's bath time. Boom. Attached to boot. I had like freebies that I used to pump. So I was like pumping and walking. And I finally just felt like, yeah, I'm kicking the hell out of this like parenting thing. But it took like teamwork, and it took a little bit of like, you know, we just had a plan kind of going into it, going, let's get the whiteboard going. Let's get you doing bedtime so I get a chunk of sleep. And then, you know, the rest of it, we'll see how it goes. And every day was a little different. My daughter had like a tongue tie, and that was interesting from a nursing standpoint. So we dealt with our own things, as every parent does. You know, my kids weren't perfect, but for the most part, they slept well from birth. They'd get up at 10 to eat. They'd get up around 1 or 2 to eat. They'd get up around 4 o'clock to eat, and they'd get up at 7 for the day. And that was pretty much the first 8 weeks of our life, you know, which frankly, having a newborn isn't so bad.
That's awesome. I'm always thinking of like the business parallels because, we teach people to birth these baby businesses, right? They're like sometimes first time entrepreneurs. I'm like, this whiteboard thing, I feel like this could work for someone who's trying to devote time to a business too. Sometimes a business needs you in the middle of the night. Sometimes it, cries every once in a while. And like, I wonder, just for our moms listening, even if you are out of this stage of having newborns, but you are birthing a new baby business, like, I wonder if something like this could just bring the whole family on the team, so to say, of like, you don't need to do everything yourself. Delegation is so powerful. And sometimes done is better than perfect on some things.
Yeah. No,
so
absolutely.
it's so good.
Yeah.
Sometimes that visual really, really helps. I remember Justin and I definitely had a whiteboard season of, I think it was our budget. We were trying to like do a little bit more budgeting. And so we had a whiteboard with that and just having that visual kind of like somewhere in the house of something, whether it's chores, whether it's to-dos, whether it's calendar or budget. Like it was just like, you can't forget about it, And for me, I'm the visual guy. Like I think a lot of guys are this way. It's like, if I don't see it, I forget about it sometimes. So that's very helpful.
Yeah. And it is, to your point, like you see it and you like, okay, the kids haven't gotten their laundry done this week. When I go upstairs now, I'll grab it when I come back down and just toss it in the wash. And then I would see that it's in the wash. And when I was home and in the basement, I would throw it in the dryer. So it was like unspoken teamwork.
Yeah.
That you need because he was working. We had 2 kids and we talk, but for 2 minutes in bed before I'm passed out, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I would love to talk a little bit, Courtney, just about your journey, your business journey. And I know you've done different things and are very well, educated on different things with postpartum and not just sleep training, but so many other things that play positively into your client's experience. And I know you just mentioned to us before we went live on the show that you are coming out with a new app soon. So you're just looking for ways to continue to improve. And I know you also do some coaching for other sleep consultants who need to understand like the business part of putting information out there and everything. So through your entrepreneur journey, what have been some like key things that have just kept you going or things that, I know we all have roadblocks, whether it's with sleep training and getting our kids on a schedule or creating a whiteboard. And then there's ones that happen in business too. I'd just love to hear just about some things that you've, maybe done every year in your business or just things that like, I do these things and they work really well as a mom and as a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost is I make a list of my top 7, right? What are the top 7 priorities every year that I want to focus on? Number 1, why did I do this? Why did I leave a really lucrative corporate career to launch my own company where I probably work more in some cases, depending, right? Why did I do that? Well, I wanted the flexibility to be with my family when I wanted. I wanted to spend time with my kids and make money and have fun doing it. And so I make a top 7 list and I literally sit and think, what are the things that are most important? Time with my kids. Probably number 1, moreover than my kids, is my relationship with my husband. We have a beautiful relationship. He is amazing. We are each other's cheerleaders. My relationship with God, my relationship with my family, things to me like self-care time once a month, so I make that list of 7 that I revisit probably a couple times a year to just make sure I'm in check with my own needs, my family's needs, and the company. I have a team of 10 consultants all over the country who are beautiful and amazing, and they all are part of my priority too. I want to help them make money. They're doing this as a part of my team to do the same things that I want. I time block everything. So I sit down I'm up at 5 a.m. every day and I go to bed at 9 o'clock every night. Unless, the house is burning down and somebody knocks on the door, you're not getting in touch with me because there's no devices in my bedroom. And so basically I time block, and that's been really helpful for me because I know that I have to write a blog post each week, and I know that I have to record a podcast. I know I do a new video and I do interviews, and I'm, trying to be the face of the company, but I also have the back end work to do. And some of it you can outsource, some of it you can't, it just kind of depends. So, I'm balancing all of that. Right. And so time blocking and probably like making a priority list that you stick to and reassess a couple times a year has been super helpful. I'm a business person, right? Like I came from my master's in marketing. I spent 15 years in corporate America for a Fortune 500 company. So I had the business sense, right? And so when I launched Tiny Transitions, like, okay, how do I do this? And it was a learning curve. I didn't know marketing automation when I first started. That wasn't my wheelhouse. It was web design and site structures and intranets and stuff. I didn't do marketing automation. So for me, like, I had to learn that and I had to teach myself that. So there's been just such an interesting journey because it is a business. So you need equally the sleep knowledge and then you need equally the business knowledge. And I always wanted to do this to help as many people as I could to sleep. I do a lot of pro bono work with charities and such, young mothers who are 14, 15 years old, pregnant, babies,
Wow.
no idea what they're doing. They're still in high school. So I do a lot of stuff locally here in Philly with things like that. Everybody deserves good sleep. And I do so much free stuff. I have a private Facebook community called Slumber Made Simple. And I do free training every week. There's open Q&As every week. You're talking to me live, and it's like, I just want it to be a place of community where you can get the help. I'm not going to be like, well, just try and then book a call with me. Like, that's not the point. If you need my help, you can hire me. Otherwise, just, this couple tweaks might help you. And, that's all you need. And, so I really my whole goal foundationally was to help as many families as I could to get good sleep. So I do it through sleep coaching, through my team coaching. I coach other sleep consultants on how to build a good and financially lucrative sleep coaching business because they kind of did think it was if you build it, they'll come, and they're realizing quickly it's not. So, just the app I'm so excited about. It's in final stages of testing, and then we're going to ship it to Android and Apple, and hopefully by the spring I can have a big announcement that it's coming out. So it'll be able to, sleep coaching on demand, and at quality education, right? I see so many people that buy these ebooks for $200 and it's like the same ebook as the other one that was $200 and the same one that's $27 on this website. And it's a book and it's good, but it lacks the coaching. And that's where the value comes in with sleep training, because sometimes you need coaching because you're like, what is missing here? So the ebooks serve a purpose, but for someone who's not necessarily like the investigator, if you will, to try things, what I'm doing with the app is the education married with coaching. So it's, open calls and chat functionality with a sleep coach and me and live Q&As, like just a real different way to look at kind of an app and sleep coaching than, what's on the market today. So I'm pretty stoked.
Wow. That's so exciting. It gets me excited. That's the entrepreneurial, flavor that we carry. We're always looking for, a question we always encourage our Rainmaker community is like, how can you serve more or love your person more than anyone in your industry? Like, how can you offer more value than anyone else? And you're totally doing this with even just the things that you've educated yourself on. I can see they're all ways that you can serve a mom at a higher level. Like, oh, you have an issue with this. I also am certified in that. And I'm also trained in this. And it's so cool you have that. But not only that, you've built the team to serve more people because you can only do so much, right? So you have a team of people. That's another concept we teach a lot in Rainmakers is not being the person who does everything, but being the person who manages people that do the things. So that's super awesome. And then dreaming even bigger with the mobile app of how can I get this in the hands of more people, empower more people with this information, have more impact. And I believe when you truly go after, with that heart of love and service for people, and you the heart is impact, the income will follow. And I'm sure you're seeing that as well. So this is encouraging, just for the moms looking for sleep training. I would love for them to connect with you, but also the entrepreneurs looking to level up and find more ways to serve their people at a higher level. This has been such an encouraging, inspiring conversation. So thank you, Courtney, for being with us. How can people connect with you online if they want to follow your stuff, dive into the things you have going on? What's the best place?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is tinytransitions.com. You can learn about me, my team. We're all awesome. We also have that free sleep community. You can jump out to Facebook, just search Slumber Made Simple, and you'll pop up and get in there. Like I said, we do trainings all the time. I'm doing a newborn workshop. So
Cool.
You guys can jump in there.
Yeah,
And
we
do just trainings all the time. It's really just about education. So they can find me on the Kids Sleep Show podcast. We've got a new season kicking off this week. So I'm here to serve, and I give away a lot of information. People say, why do you give away so much for free? Because it serves, right? Your mission for you and what I know about you is that you want to be positive and you want to serve, right? And I have a similar mission. I want to help you. If you truly need coaching, you will hire me. You know what I'm saying? So it allows you to build a relationship with me and understand my strategy. I might not be for everybody, and that's okay, but it gives people a fair chance to get to know me and decide, yeah, she knows her stuff and I want to work with her or her team, who again are all equally awesome. So thank you again for having me. This has been super fun, and I'm excited to to hear all about baby number 2 and how you do things a little bit differently this time with the newborn phase. So
thank you so much,
Definitely.
Courtney.
Thank you.